please go ahead and mute yourselves and switch off your camera so it does not interfere with the quality of the event. Also, a big shout out to all the attendees and volunteers who make Products by Women happen. In less than a year, we've rapidly grown to over 5,000 members globally. And this really wouldn't have been possible without you all. So thank you. Before we begin, some quick housekeeping tips. Of course, I've mentioned this a couple of times, so please do switch off your camera and mute yourselves. That'll be great. And if you do have any questions, don't hesitate to put it in the chat box or raise your hand, and we'll get to them at the end of the session. We will be circulating these slides at the end of the events, also via our newsletter and on Slack. So if if you're not signed on as yet, I would suggest you do check us out at productsbywomen.com. We've also dropped a bunch of resources in the chat box for your reference. Lastly, through the course of the session, if you have any questions, please do drop them in the chat box and we'll get to them at the end. And with that, I will be passing it on to Emily.
Hi, everyone. Just going to get my screen all set up. Thank you all for having me tonight and for spending your Friday evening with me. Really appreciate your time. My name's Emily. I'm a product manager at Seesaw, and I wanted to share a little bit about my journey to product management before we get into my experience with COVID at Seesaw. In college, I worked on a student newspaper, did a study abroad in Argentina, and was a literacy tutor in DC. Got my bachelor's in Spanish and studio art from Georgetown University, and graduated in the middle of the recession. So became an office manager. Was fortunate enough to sort of get to learn on the job there and transitioned into the online marketing department after a few years. Had some side projects on the side where I got sort of more interested in technology and web design. And in 2015, joined a two-person company startup called Shadow Puppet, which later pivoted to become Seesaw. And over the past 6 or so years, I've tried almost every role at the company as the company grew from 3 people to 60 people. The past 3 or so years, I've been focused on product management. So I'm going to talk a little bit tonight about what Seesaw is and also our experience in sort of March through June of this year. Seesaw is a platform that creates a powerful learning loop between teachers, educators, and families to deepen student learning. From March through May 2020, about 15% of K-5 students in the United States were using Seesaw daily to show their learning and connect with their teachers. And so basically for my experience with COVID is pretty intense. Like a lot of people, their world changed almost overnight. So basically, mostly overnight, schools across the US and around the world switched to remote learning. We had some early indications that things were going to be shifting with our international schools around the world, but most districts in the US shifted to remote pretty rapidly. At the same time, my team was suddenly remote, typically based in San Francisco, most of folks working in a central office. Everyone was suddenly remote and also dealing with the effects of the pandemic on their own families. And sort of over that 4-week period, we saw about 8x growth in usage of the service, which basically meant that my days, nights, mornings, weekends, evenings looked pretty much like this, just nonstop server alerts trying to keep the site up and keep up with all that growth. So in reflecting on that experience, a few sort of key themes came up for me, which I wanted to share with you all tonight. So one is around usability, accessibility, scale, cost, and then the importance of compassion. I think all of us feel sort of at Seesaw feel really honored that we could provide a service to teachers and students in such a challenging time. And that I think is also one of my big takeaways, though I don't have a slide for that. So usability. One of the things that we noticed when during this like rapid transition to remote learning, like typically Seesaw was a classroom product used by teachers and students to show what was happening in the classroom and share that with families at home. So the classroom was a big part of the product experience. Overnight that sort of went away. And so we had sort of two things happening. One is there's tons of new teachers, students, and administrators trying to start to use the service at once. And for existing teachers and students, it's a completely new teaching format. You know, we went from sort of a classroom environment, very common for elementary, to a sort of exclusively digital format, which is a really tough transition. So part of the way we help support our teachers through that was by offering like daily online professional development to help teachers transition to remote learning. We also did a bunch of changes in the product to like link to relevant resources and fix error messages that were particularly confusing. We saw sort of an amplification of a lot of the issues, small things that, you know, sort of bugs that were small before got really amplified in this time. Another thing is that, you know, most of my customers are pre-readers or early readers. And so every usability issue or sort of rough edge in the product got sort of amplified and made much worse by the fact that the scaffolding that the classroom provides with the teacher who has a good amount of context on how to use the product is suddenly gone. And so we sort of shifted into a mode of having weekly releases to quickly fix the worst sort of user experience issues in the product, and found out about those by sort of reading customer support tickets, reviewing our internal alerting and monitoring, and, you know, a lot of also our internal team became, you know, were transitioned also to helping their students learn from home using Seesaw in many cases. And so we got a lot of internal feedback as well. Another thing that sort of came to light in this COVID growth period was that the accessibility requirements for our service changed. So we saw huge growth on Android and Kindle Fire as schools and families struggled to find devices for students to use, which meant that platform parity between our iOS web app, Android app was essential. And platforms that were underused before, you know, typically Android was like sort of always lagging behind, sort of grew quickly, which meant we had a lot more bugs to fix on those platforms. Another interesting thing that we noticed is that the average network connection speeds that our customers were using also plummeted. So we had to invest in better monitoring and working on making file sizes smaller. You know, the whole point of Seesaw is for students to be able to document their learning and show their work. And if they can't upload their work, that's a big problem. So while we saw this like sort of plummeting network connection speeds, we also saw a big increase in the use of multimedia features like audio and video. Which makes a lot of sense. Teachers are working with mostly non-readers or early readers, so audio and video are huge. It's also really important to maintain that personal connection between teachers and students with each other. And audio and video are a really beautiful way to do that. And so we saw a huge increase in use of those features, which sort of led us to spending a good amount of time rebuilding our video and audio transcoding pipelines, which was not a project that I had on my product roadmap for this year, but became pretty essential pretty quickly. We also have been sort of working on adding additional multimedia features to the product to better support these use cases. Another thing from my experience is that Though we had sort of like the opportunity, an unexpected opportunity to serve so many more people, which is really incredible, is also really hard. We sort of added, there are some sort of systems that we were using that we were able to add more servers to support the increase in demand for the service, but not all systems we rely on scale as easily. So, and like sort of small inefficiencies in the ways we were using particular technologies that weren't that important before when we were at this like previous level of scale are suddenly very important because they're amplified by, 8 times, 10 times, and can cause really big issues in the service, reliability issues in the service. And then, all of those like rare client bugs or API bugs that were sort of on our backlog in GitHub, somewhere filed away, suddenly became no longer rare. And all of this is sort of happening at once. So we decided pretty quickly that we needed to sort of throw our plans for, our plans for the first half of the year kind of out the window, divided into 2 teams where our work plans changed pretty much daily based on the customer feedback we were getting and our alerting and monitoring and infrastructure issues we're trying to get ahead of. And had one team sort of focused on infrastructure reliability and the other focused on product reliability. So then you have all of these people who are using the service. We get through a period of, struggling to keep the service up and reliable 24 hours, 7 days a week. And then you realize that you're looking at like an AWS bill that's significantly larger than your 2020 budget had predicted. And, sort of our bills with third-party services that we use for SMS and email, video transcoding, translation, also all sort of started to climb. And, I think, you don't typically go into EdTech to make a ton of money. But we also, want to be able to have a sustainable business so that we can stay in business and keep the service up. And so addressing costs that are sort of directly stemming from this rapid growth was sort of next on our list. And, sort of created a spreadsheet with the service, how much it was costing, proposed change, what sort of cost reduction we could expect from that, stack ranked that and got to work, and use sort of the savings potential as a way to prioritize what projects were most essential for us to take care of first. We also, negotiated with third parties for better rates now that we're at this new level of scale, and built some infrastructure ourselves that we were typically leveraging third parties for, sort of rebuilt on our own, including video and audio transcoding. And the last thing that I just wanted to share about sort of my experience in these early COVID times was that I think when I took a step back from that, that compassion is really the most important thing we can have sort of as product managers or leads in a company, is that, this is a really tough situation for our teachers, students, families, and also for our internal teammates for many of the same reasons. And it's just hard to exist in a period of uncertainty for so long, but we don't really have a way out of it right now. And so for me, it was about openly acknowledging that difficulty of the situation with my team and holding space for it at team meetings, and being really proactive about acknowledging people for their efforts in public and also in private, and try to take, a few deep breaths before reacting to new information, so that I could also be, open and able to receive that information and actually respond to it in a way that was productive for me and for my team. Okay. So shifting gears a little bit, originally when we started planning this webinar, we had this like sort of hope that maybe we would see, COVID cases would be under control and we would be working a little bit more towards getting life back to like our old normal. It seems that that's really not the reality that most folks are facing now. So for us at Seesaw, we're really planning for like anticipating another year of sort of COVID scale of growth. And so getting our infrastructure ready for that is our top priority. We're also sort of trying to prepare for multiple back to school realities that have a mixture of in classroom and home learning. Trying to really make sure that all of the tools that we build are simple and flexible enough that they can work for young learners, many of whom are going to be coming into a new classroom with a new teacher in this new learning format all at once, which is really challenging for teachers, learners, and families. I also just wanted to highlight a few sort of bigger picture things that we're thinking about at Seesaw, and I'm thinking about a lot. I think one of the biggest is the sort of disparity in device and internet access for K-12 students in the United States. About 30% of students, K-12 students, lack adequate access to device and internet, which is like 15 to 16 million kids. And this which obviously means like a service like what Seesaw is trying to offer is not really even reaching these students. And a lot of the various technology interventions are not able to reach these students. And that's a huge problem. I think we've also learned how essential family partnership is in student learning. We started Seesaw because we thought family partnership in learning is essential. That's sort of a big part of the service, and the goal of the service is to bring families closer to their child's learning. And this is also essential, but in a slightly different way when students are learning from home. I also think this sort of experience is giving us a pretty interesting opportunity to rethink curriculum. Now that we're in this mixed homeschool learning format, I think this COVID period has been very traumatic for most people. And we're also living in this incredible moment where Black Lives Matter movement is taking off and becoming sort of more common conversation, especially in the classroom. And so I think that sort of looking ahead to this year, it's going to be an incredibly challenging year for all learners. But there's also, I think, some real opportunities to rethink some of the things that we thought weren't possible in education, and maybe shift to some newer models that support a wider variety of learners. And I'm excited about that potential. But we do have a lot of work to do. And yeah, if you want to connect, my email is emily@seesaw.me, or you can find me on LinkedIn. We're also hiring at Seesaw, so if you're interested in learning more about those roles, you can check out our jobs page or shoot me an email. Thank you very much. And I'm going to pass the mic to Nikita. Thank you.
Thank you, Emily. That was very insightful. Hello, everyone. My name is Nikita Dang, and I'm based out of New York. I'm going to share my screen here. I work in EdTech for over 8 years, and I'm currently working as an Associate Vice President of Products at Magic EdTech, and leading their learning experience platform called MagicBox, where we are leveraging digital technology to impart learning. Today in my presentation, I'm going to cover my journey into product management, and also my experience of working with publishers and EdTech companies to highlight how MagicBox basically impacted learning during COVID. and also talk about like the trends that we are seeing and how the market is adapting due to this pandemic. I will be turning off my camera during the presentation so that you're not distracted by any surprises. I do have a 2-year-old around, so let's get started. So this is my background and journey into product management. I'm originally from Mumbai, also known as New York of India, and entertainment hub to Bollywood. Here I studied computer engineering from Mumbai University, and right after graduation, I went on to co-found a startup called as Tech with my brother. It's a services-based company which focused in providing enterprise open source solutions to SMEs. The startup life helped me hone multiple skills, right from building productive teams to code, manage several products, and also the P&L. The initial 2 to 3 years of my career was into Java coding. I also got my Sun Java certification and then business analysis certification to understand like how technology could help solve larger business needs. So this got me into the direction of mapping the business needs into requirements, which is a key step into product management. And thereon, I led to manage over like 15 plus B2C e-commerce products. And we also kind of incepted a product from an HTML5 based design tool that we developed for one of our projects. It's now called as Pixopa, which provides like a web to print solution for the print industry. So my 7 years tenure with Amazon helped me lay the foundation for my product management journey. Later on, I got married, had to move my base to New Delhi, that's the capital of India. And here I did a few consulting gigs for a company in UK, India, and helped evolve my skill in translating business requirements to technical solutioning. A year later, magic happened, and here I joined as a product manager and was second on the team to lead the entire product life cycle, right from inception to leading a team of 40 cross-functional teams, training them on the agile methodology, and also then scaling up to taking over 50 customers live and to serving over 4 million users. Also continually working with the marketing, sales, and support functions to kind of support this. So this was like a full test of my product management experience and has definitely helped me evolve as a PM. The takeaway for aspiring PMs is that consider 3 primary factors when evaluating a PM role. One is your core competencies, as Martin Erickson, founder of Product Tank, has correctly summed up in a simple Venn diagram. It's your ability as a PM to intersect like business, technology, and user experience is the key. So as a PM, you should know how to conduct like customer interviews, user testing, run design sprints, feature prioritization, roadmap planning, and also master the art of resource allocation. It's not a science. So, and also you need to understand how to perform market assessments, translate the business to technical requirements, and also how to price and revenue your product. Another key aspect is also to track like what's the success matrix of what you're building as a product in the market. The second aspect I would say is your emotional intelligence and relationship management skills. So your ability to empathize with customers and subtly like suss out the pain points that your product or feature will address and navigate like both internal and external hurdles to ship a great product is key. And the last and foremost is finding a right company fit, which will let you thrive your PM core skills and personal traits to apply them to guarantee success into product management. Next, I'll share how MagicBox helped impact learning and how EdTech industry is adapting to change during COVID. MagicBox won IMS Global Learning Impact Award recently and is a platform of choice for publishers and EdTech companies to transform their print to digital journey and support remote learning for student success. The COVID-19 pandemic did challenge the world to revisit the idea of digital learning, especially where remote learning is the only way to continue education for our children and workforce. So before COVID, we were obsessed about how poor the digital adoption of technology by school students and teachers were. But today, the focus has shifted to operational challenges that come in the way of, digital adoption. So I'll share my experience with MagicBox on how we helped impact learning outcomes during this remote learning shift. MagicBox provided like equitable access to over 40,000 publisher-owned resources for online and offline learning for over 4 million users, and driving engagement up by 30% with personalized learning tools and providing device agnostic access to learning resources. We saw a 20% uptick in the user growth and 2x increase in the resources that were added into MagicBox, and also 3x CPU utilization and database connections during the Feb to April period. Luckily, we had Amazon AWS being the backbone of our infrastructure. We were able to auto scale the servers and manage the peak load without having any 404 errors and provide like a continuous learning environment. Overall, collectively, MagicBox users have read like 130 million pages, spent 22 million hours learning. And with remote learning being the new normal, we anticipate like more user engagement and growth in the upcoming back to school. On the business to business side, because we work directly with publishers and edtech companies and not with direct schools and districts. So there were many publishers who would take like months to have like an online solution in place, who literally went live as soon as like 2 weeks with MagicBox to offer like a remote learning solution. And this kind of helped sustain their print to digital business during these challenging times. We also saw surge in free trials, digital resources being distributed, and need for instructions, which existed in print was required to be digitized overnight. So Magic also has like a content services, which we kind of helped digitize over 30,000 pages in a span of like 2 weeks. We did see like more requests on data privacy agreements. So there was like more seriousness around having those privacy agreements intact. And also requests for like teacher enablement tools, like opening a live stream session where they could teach a virtual class to annotate over the content for teaching. And also a parent communication channel where parent role has definitely evolved to participate actively in their kids' learning journey now. Now, how edtech industry is changing post-COVID, definitely it's an unprecedented calamity for the world. We are completely unprepared. The impact of offline education is very high. Studies have shown that 87.4%, which is like almost 1.5 billion students, were affected by this rapid uneven shift to remote learning due to COVID. Education in most cases does not qualify like an essential activity. Therefore, it's unlikely that offline schools, colleges, universities, and training institutions will start full-time before there's a cure or vaccine found. So clearly, technology needs to play a role here to ensure continuity in learning. So the change, what we're seeing and learning from the market is addressing inequity in remote learning environment. It's a complex challenge. School systems need to adapt across like many dimensions while serving students from a variety of backgrounds. Due to disparity and equality in this COVID situation, syllabuses which were exam-oriented, they're no longer fit for purposes of tests, and states have suspended federal standardized exam requirements in the wake of coronavirus. Distance learning has definitely widened the gap of student learning efficacy. So NWEA study concluded that students will return in fall 2020 with roughly 70% of learning gains in reading relative to a typical school year. However, in maths, students are likely to show much smaller learning gains, returning with less than 50% for back to school. And there are some grades which are nearly a year behind is what we are observing in normal conditions. So we haven't been in this situation before, right? But the silver lining is that we all will be better with teaching with technology and offering blended learning solutions, become more open-minded to digital learning, tap into creativity and out-of-the-box ideas in education at the end of it. And to address some of these issues, MagicBox does have, it's been designed with continuous feedback loops and providing like standardized aligned analytics for tracking student progress to help educators kind of find the skill gap in order to impart like differentiated instructions for each student. This was like a widely used module and is heavily in demand as we learn the school systems will need to run diagnostic assessments to baseline each student's knowledge when they get back to school. So overall, we've seen there's a lot more focus on having an integrated system that connects diagnostic assessments to the curriculum and intervention that provides a complete picture of students' academic health. Other area, we did see a surge in SEL, that's social emotional learning requests. Kids at home are missing their friends, and often they are not used to being with family 24/7, and parents don't want to have 8 hours of screen time, right? So this kind of raised all social emotional issues. And Magic was approached by a lot of education companies that wanted to bring curriculum that covered like SEL, like transforming their physical board games in multiplayer mode where kids could join multiplayer, learn math, and have fun. SEL programming will be readily funded is what we're seeing and adopted to monitor the health of the student body. And with increase in SEL behavioral management, it suggests like new ways of personalization, interpretation, and insights analytics. So EdTech companies are also now becoming like more concerned with accessibility, with increased focus on special needs services in the light of spike in distance learning. What we are also learning from the industry is micro-credentialing is increasing, providing certification of various teaching skills will only continue to grow. SR will be the biggest driver of change in K-12 for educator or professional learning trends. There's a demand for interoperability and content to be distributed in multiple formats on numerous devices for like offline usage so that you kind of support the low network areas. And there'll be a lot more growing acceptance in the US education for multilingual families as we're seeing more asks for multi-language support. And with more shift into digital learning, there will be continued focus on privacy and data protection acts like FERPA, COPA, CCPA. So yeah, this is what we're learning. Some of the onward trends that we're observing is the adoption of learning online through the use of technology will definitely accelerate like never before. Offline schools, universities, colleges will also transition to launch their online programs delivered in partnership with EdTech companies who will help them power their learning delivery. So there'll be a growing partnership between traditional education players and EdTech companies. Our industry has been used to rule-based engines to provide recommendations, learning pathways for adaptive learning. What we are going to see more is like an NLP, machine learning, AI, AR, VR that can take like quantum lead in the way to customize the pace of learning for each student, and have like a probably virtual assistant to kind of guide through learning. And also automate some of the administrative duties for teachers, like where they have to grade and manage the rosters and things like that. So some of these things will be automated through AI. So I hope this session was informative, and if you have any questions or would like to learn more about EdTech, do feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn, and here's my contact details. And with that, I will pass on to Ashley to take it forward.
Thanks, Nikita. Hi, I'm Ashley. I'm a product manager at Teachable. And let me just adjust my screen. We can get started. I will similarly turn my video off during the presentation. Right. So I am a product manager at Teachable, focusing on our creator success side of the business. And for this presentation, I'll start with my role into product, go into what Teachable is and who we serve, and then finally go into how Teachable has changed during COVID and the things that we've seen in our space. So first, my path to product. I was a neuroscience, math, and computer science major at the University of Pennsylvania. I went initially into technical project management positions in healthcare, CPG, and pharmaceutical spaces. Really liked the technical implementation aspects of working on software projects, but wanted to get more strategic. So I did a transition into both nonprofit, which was a big focus, as well as into product management, and moved to DoSomething.org, where my primary project was building and iterating on voter registration software, which in the 2018 election helped register 100,000 young adults to vote. I then moved to Understood.org, where I built and led the team that was responsible for replatforming Understood's resource and education site for parents of children with learning differences. So we were supplying articles and different ways for parents to help their children with things like ADHD or dyslexia. And that led me to Teachable, where I'm right now leading the team that is focused on creator success. And most recently, we brought our online coaching product into a suite of products that our creators can sell. So next I'll go into kind of Teachable and what our mission is. So Teachable's mission is to transform a creator's experience and know-how into a thriving knowledge business. So we aim to give creators the tools to create courses and coaching products so that they can build a thriving, sustainable knowledge-based business with us. And we do that in using three different kind of pillars of our business. The first of which is by holding their knowledge. We know that our creators find a lot of value in the work that we do in organizing their knowledge, whether it be an online course or a coaching session. So we really provide the content management system to hold their lectures, hold their information, hold their coaching platforms. Second is by doing the hard stuff. So we handle transactions, we handle taxes, everything to do with international purchases, compliance, all of the stuff that they don't want to deal with as a small business owner, we handle that. And by being the gatekeepers. So our creators rely on us to be the ones that control someone's access to their knowledge. So we want to make that as customizable as they need so that their pricing and packaging can fit their businesses and grow with them. Some teachable facts. The first one specifically for products by women is that 60% of our creators are women. I think that's it's a very cool thing to see that that we really are helping women small business owners primarily, or over a majority of women small business owners run their businesses with us. Our course topics can range from anything from knitting to marketing to hand lettering to sourdough bread making. We really see kind of the gamut of people's knowledge, and something that I think was the most interesting when I started at Teachable was just how niche some of our creators can get in the knowledge that they want to not only share with the world, but also sell to people. And the fact that, that people are really looking for incredibly niche knowledge, like the iron levels in goats, things like that. We have 100,000 creators, and our creators have sold $500 million worth of courses in coaching. And we just launched coaching, which is the project that my team has been working on for a while. We launched that June 15th. So our creators now can sell not only courses, but also coaching programs. So next we'll go into some changes during COVID. So this top map or top graph is how our new school creation, so the new people coming onto our platform changed from the beginning of 2020 to right now. So you can see here, the initial lockdown in Asia, we saw a bit of a blip, but really when we saw the lockdown in America and across the world, was really when you start to see a lot of increase, and that increase in new schools that were created has kind of continued since then. You can see how that just really mirrors the case counts that we're seeing today with coronavirus. we really believe that, this is a tweet from our founder, we really believe that the online education industry has forever changed since March 2020. We really are seeing that kind of sustained growth at Teachable, with our creators coming, selling, and then staying with online learning. So this is a quote from an interior stylist who had brought all of her work from in person very rapidly online, and this is a really key user persona that we've started to see come onto our platform pretty quickly. So Lucy said that it's changed my life in terms of giving me an income when all my jobs as a stylist were canceled at the beginning of COVID. A lot of our creators think and always have a dream to be able to have online courses as a way of supplementing their in-person work. But this really was a catalyst for a lot of people to be able to, once everything canceled and once no one could be in person for anything, a lot of their business became, the focus became solely on the idea that they would be bringing online courses to their clients. So to that point, we saw a lot of in-person businesses, so health and fitness, beauticians, some schools join the platform as we saw that shift to online learning and to not being able to be in person. And we were seeing our creators getting to their first sale much quicker. Our creators tended to spend a lot of time trying to figure out exactly what needed to be in a lecture, and really getting everything to the exact polish that they did before they started selling. Their time to first sale was cut in about half during COVID. So there was a lot of urgency for a lot of these small businesses to be able to get their business in some sort of form up on the internet and be able to sell as quickly as possible. Coupled with seeing that much growth in the amount of people coming onto the platform, we saw a serious increase in customer care tickets to support this new growth in schools, as well as a doubling of our student traffic on the platform. So not only were our creators selling more, we are seeing more students learning anything from sourdough bread baking to knitting, trying to pass the time during coronavirus. Interesting tidbit is that our total sales doubled while consumer spending as a whole decreased during shutdown, which was really exciting to see people kind of spending their time and spending their money acquiring knowledge during this time. Some of our key learnings as a team. The first was that the transition to remote work was really difficult. I heard that echoed from a couple of the other presenters. Within our team, it was, we definitely spent a lot of time talking through kind of how the transition was going, what we can make it better, and retroing and spending a lot of time within retrospectives to understand how we can work better as a team and how we can grow in this new space, especially because it was obviously going to be longer than I think we all ever expected. So definitely leading with empathy and working with your team to make it better is really key. The second learning that we had, I think we were in a really good place that we didn't necessarily have to be incredibly reactionary in this space, but we were able to take in the inputs from the creators that were coming to our platform and coming with different needs. To be able to change our roadmap slightly, but not fully upending our plans. So our roadmaps were able to stay pretty similar to what we were expecting, but we were able to react and do small pieces and changes of prioritization based on the creators that were joining our platform and how they were different. So we had a lot of people that were coming in that really needed specific features within our coaching feature that we were able to integrate and reprioritize as we led to launch, so that it was more useful for those creators that were joining the platform at the time. The third key learning was really keeping up with infrastructure and technical stability work. It was probably a blessing in disguise that we had some infrastructure problems in the latter part of 2019 that made our team focus really heavily in January on infrastructure and technical stability, which I truly believe is the reason that we were able to kind of take all of this with stride. And some things that are next for us. So we are continuing those larger technical conversations to make sure that we're preparing for that easy growth. I think it's been really incredible that we can continually focus our product pods on the things that are important and the things that we want to be doing, because we have prioritized that infrastructure work, and we want to make sure that we continue to do that. We're iterating with that one-on-one coaching and implementing group coaching, specifically to start to help the creators more that have joined during COVID. A lot of people that are joining are things like yoga teachers or art professors or things like that. That an online course is good for their students, but they need a little bit more, and they generally like to do that kind of work in a group space. So making sure that we have a space where not only a student and a creator can learn together, but also people can learn from each other. The last point I think I'll make is that these creators, they're a very interesting subset of our group. A lot of our creators that have joined in the 4 or 5 years that Teachable has been around before this is they were always coming to become an online knowledge entrepreneur in some case. These creators are quite different because they have a business and they are a small business already. So just we're really trying to think about, and we're really excited about being partners with these small businesses that once they do go back to being either partially in person or fully in person, online knowledge really becoming part of their business model and really becoming part of their growth. I think we have a really big opportunity to be that online partnership with, let's say, a cake baker that had to close down during COVID, that started online courses, just giving them that extra piece of income and that extra sense of security, just in case something like this happens again. This is one of our creators that we had interviewed during the shutdown, and I think the sentiment really captures that idea that our creators, and especially these folks that have joined in the past couple of months, it's been really, really hard for them. It's been super hard for so many small businesses to go through all of this, but they seem to always have that silver lining. They seem to always see the light at the end of the tunnel, and this is one of our creators as they were building their online school for dance, specifically saying that with online courses and coaching, the fact that she feels like she can have the world as her client, which is really exciting. So with that, here is my LinkedIn and my email, and then the last note is that Teachable is hiring. We are hiring in product, but we're also hiring across many, many other roles right now. So thank you. And I will pass it off to Megha.
Hi, everyone. I am Megha Roy, and I work with World Education Services as the Associate Director for Product Management. Let me share my screen. All right, so before we get into the presentation, I'd like to briefly talk about my journey to product management. I completed my undergrad in physics honors and moved on to getting my MBA in marketing in Delhi from India. And from there on, I held a few positions in brand management and marketing, and primarily taking care of responsibilities such as initiating strategic marketing plans for products, demand generation, supporting sales and distribution channels for customer acquisition strategy. And I worked on those roles for about 6 years. And then I moved to US and I pursued another master's degree in marketing intelligence from Fordham University in New York. And that was with the motive to myself and get started in data analytics. And I've been with them for the last 6 years. And my internet connection is unstable. So I'm going to just switch my camera off. I'm sorry for pausing. All right, I'm back. So at Wes, I've held responsibilities in market research, product marketing, and I found my greatest opportunity for growth and development in product management after I was able to identify a problem and I pitched a solution in collaboration with our dear moderator, Naimisha Murthy, who also happens to be my colleague at Wes. We were fortunate enough to work cross-functionally to bring a solution to market, and I am now a part of the current product and development team at Wes. World Education Services, Wes, it is a mission-driven social impact organization that helps international students and professionals achieve their education and career goals in the United States and Canada. We evaluate and we advocate for the recognition of their international qualification and their education. And in the last 46 years, Wes has been the pioneers in the field of international mobility, and we have served millions of customers worldwide by bringing products in the market that has helped them achieve their career goals and integrate them in the US and Canada. So that is all about me. Moving on to the presentation. I'm going to begin with sharing some fast facts. These are some data points in international higher ed and student mobility worldwide. The growth of middle class in certain developing countries in Asia and Africa, it has really propelled the demand for higher education and is slated to reach over 400 million by 2030. There are over 5.3 million international students in 2017. It's a little old data. Right now it's probably even higher. And last year, we had over 1 million international students in US, which is 5.5% of the total student body at US higher education institutions. Pre-COVID, according to Observatory of Borderless Education, online education accounted for only 15% of the sample education market share. Now, with the impact from COVID, a lot has changed. In April, when schools and institutions were closed in 185 countries, according to UNESCO, 1.72 billion learners were affected due to the closure of education institutions. And according to many reports, COVID-19 has also affected teaching and learning. And as my fellow presenters have already talked about this, the whole shift from face-to-face to distance teaching, it came with a lot of challenges. And the main ones being access to technical infrastructure, the competencies of pedagogies, especially for certain specific field of studies, which really requires a face-to-face interaction. Based on the numbers and the facts that I just presented, it is safe to say that internationalization of education will continue because the demand for higher ed will remain unchanged. In fact, it will keep growing more and more. But what might change is the student mobility in the long and short run, and it will almost certainly look different as both students and institutions are adapting to this dramatic change in circumstances. So the world as we know it, even before the pandemic, a number of institutions were already experiencing a growth in their registrations for online courses. And there were many other factors that came into play, geopolitical factors because of the instability that was happening in certain parts of the world. Also the introduction of restrictive and tightening immigration policies and border controls, it was all making an impact on international mobility and higher education. So pre-COVID, EdTech had already expanded, but as a result of the pandemic, education providers are now just forced to experiment with online instructions suddenly. And this has significantly lowered the psychological barriers that people have towards online education. You know, a lot of parents, students, even faculties, they think that, you know, it is not, online education is not better than face-to-face education. But it is all changing. In reality, this pandemic has really acted as an accelerator in these underlying trend of higher education. And it's just happening at a much, much faster rate now for a very high volume of individuals and institutions. So the internal shifts that are now happening, and the trends include online teaching and learning. Everyone has moved to online teaching and learning. And there are a lot of things that comes under this category: digitizing learning materials, e-learning features such as virtual classes, animation-based lessons, and snackable content. It can all transform how students learn. Even delivery of online course material is important. Suddenly educators, they have to adapt to a completely new style of delivering you know, the education in an online mechanism. How do you train the trainers? What sort of teaching tools can be provided to these teachers to facilitate a better learning experience and also increase collaboration and engagement among the students? And most important is, how do you ensure that all students have access to the technology that is needed for remote learning? Second category is the personalized learning. There is a need for learning management tools that can enable personalized learning in a more effective way. Can learning be provided in localized language that can really support more and more students during this outbreak? And that could really help close the education gap, especially children in remote communities with really poor access to high quality teaching. There are new generation of digital technologies. Some of my fellow presenters have already talked about it. Cloud computing, machine learning, AI, AR, VR, it is all matured and really provides an immersive and personalized education and can be provided also at scale, thus lowering the cost of education and also enabling students to really learn at their own pace. Then how do you validate these learnings online? What sort of learning assessments should be in place when one shifts to an online learning model? This would really require institutions to develop some sort of an infrastructure, a really high quality infrastructure, a need to innovate in student assessment beyond the more traditional assessment which exist currently and are still pretty predominant for a large cohort of students. And again, this will certainly, bring, rise to hybrid models. There is a great opportunity to reinvent new models of experiential learning and provide powerful campus experiences for students, specifically for, international education, wherein students are looking to get educated abroad. They're not only looking for a degree or just to pursue a course, but they're looking for a completely different experience. They want to experience the culture of a different country, social experience. They want to access a different network. They also want to access a different job market in a different country. So the whole experience also comes as a package along with just to study abroad. So how does education providers meet the needs of such students? So definitely, conventional education model will not become obsolete post-COVID. However, it will be strongly supported by digital learnings. So all the internal shifts, in the last few slides, I talked about the logistics of how education will be delivered and how it should be consumed. It's all going to be driven by one emerging trend. And that is going to be the trend in which, we talk about the need for a job-ready workforce from the market. So what does the market need? What is the market looking for? The World Economic Forum has predicted that by 2020, over half of the employees will require significant reskilling or upskilling to do their jobs. And that was before COVID-19. With the increasing tech disruption and of course the pandemic, upskilling of new and modified roles, it has become even more important to safeguard our job now as well as for the future. A lot of the roles and a lot of the jobs that we have lost in this pandemic may not even come back again, or may come back in a completely modified way. So reskilling and upskilling is going to be even more important in today's time. So while universities across the world, they are digitizing themselves, they may also need to think about how it prepares students for the workforce. So some of the trends that will rise, the demand for short-term skill-based courses continuously go up. In order to remain agile and adaptable for the marketplace, students and professionals, they will have to keep upskilling themselves with industry-ready courses. Micro-credentials, which is modular learning, Pre-COVID, there was already a growing demand from the labor market force for more flexible and blended forms of learning, which is beyond any initial education, which is, the beyond the master's and the bachelor's degree. So there was a very heavy demand for micro-credentials from mature adult learners already. It allowed them to acquire specific skills and knowledge. So now universities should take this opportunity to develop new models which hasn't been provided at a broader scale yet. Skills and competency assessment, which is basically assessments of credentials beyond your initial education. There's a demand from the employer side to measure a potential candidate's skills required for a job. There's also going to be a huge demand from employees' side as well to evaluate the gaps in their own current and potential career, thereby identifying the performance areas that they are lacking on and, getting specific training to excel in their current career path. Then finally, blockchain is going to be another emerging and important technology, which can be, really, really beneficial to validate learnings. It is an important technology that can help people really carry any kind of high value and high stake credentials with them. And these credentials remain verifiable in any geographic context and has a really, really long longevity. They can be verified very quickly with just one click. So it is very beneficial for employers as well, as it cuts time and increases quality of hiring of their candidates. So in the end, I would just like to say that in the current context, a lot of online education is delivered in its most basic form. We have just been thrown in this circumstance and we are just like replicating traditional forms of learning on campus. This pandemic definitely offers an opportunity to reimagine international education by creating partnerships that spans borders, creating blended learning, rethinking pedagogy for a better online delivery. And with the technological innovation, education can be provided at scale, reducing the cost of education. Cost of education is a huge barrier for many people to access a higher education. So if that gets lowered, the access to education will improve. Larger volume of students will be able to get education. We may even see less dropouts, more completion of degrees, and a workforce which is job ready and has a much greater likelihood of success. So that was all from me. Thank you. If you would like to connect with me, feel free to use my email or my or LinkedIn account to reach out to me. And over to you, Naimisha.
Hi guys, thank you so much. And if for a minute I can have all the speakers back with me, I do want to be mindful of time. It is 7:30 p.m. and it is a Friday. Usually we do have Q&A in the end, but we had such amazing content and I didn't want to cut anybody off. So what I'll do is circle back with all the speakers and we'll have them answer these questions in some way or form. And we've also dropped all their contact information, so feel free to connect with them directly. And and we'll stay tuned with all the questions. We'll answer it in a different form, maybe in an article or on Slack, or we'll just do a live on Instagram. All right. And for the speakers, would you guys want to say something? Did you, closing notes? You're all on mute, by the way.
No, it was a really very informative session. I learned a lot from other speakers, and I know we ran out of time. I was really looking forward to the Q&A. I'll be happy to answer any questions in any format. Just include me in it. Yeah.
Awesome. Yes, we will definitely circle back, and we have so many wonderful questions. And I, in fact, had to trickle it down to just a few, select few. Yeah, we'll circle back with those. And I do want to say that, if any of you want to connect with other peers in Products by Women across the globe, please do reach out to us at productsbywomen.com. You can also email us at info@productsbywomen.com, and we'll go from there. That's it, guys. Have a good weekend. See you. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.